بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا مولانا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم. السلام عليكم. Barakallahu feekum. Today, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, I wanted to share a narration, not from the chapter that we're going through, but I thought it would be important and relevant for us to take some lessons from. There is a famous narration that each and every single one of us has likely heard, which is where a man entered the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he began to do the one thing that everybody knows you don't do in the masjid. What is that? He urinated. And this narration is often kind of given as a standalone. But Ibn Hajar, rahimahullah, the great scholar of hadith, as well as another great scholar, Badruddin al-Aini, rahimahullah, they both gave some insight into this narration. They mentioned that the individual who did this did not have a one-off. He didn't just have one thing that he did. In fact, Ibn Hajar, rahimahullah, calls him Sa'il, Qa'il, Ba'il. These are on the pattern of the doer in Arabic, which is to say, Sa'ala is to ask, so Sa'il is the one who asks. Then Qa'il, Qawl, Qala is to speak, and the doer of the action of speaking is Qa'il, right? And then lastly, Bala, Bawl. Bawl refers to urination. Therefore, the Ba'il refers to the urinator. It's an odd word in English. But he calls him these three things because his narration, it actually encompasses all in one day, three things that he did. And how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam reacted is important for us to take lessons from. The first is Sa'il. And this is that this Bedouin man, Dhul Khuwaysira al-Yamani, radiyallahu an, he came as a Bedouin. So he's not necessarily a person who lives in the city. He just kind of passes through here and there. He comes to the Prophet ﷺ. He just asks him a very blunt question. He says, Mata sa'a? He doesn't say, Assalamu alaikum ya Rasulullah. How are you? How's your family? How are your wives? He says, as Bedouins are known to be rougher, kind of the people who are not as well trained in manners and these types of things. He just comes to the Prophet ﷺ. He says, Mata sa'a? He's asking the question. First part, Sa'il. Rasulullah asks him a question in return. He says, what did you prepare? What have you prepared for? And he says, nothing except that I love you. Nothing except that I know that I love you. Rasulullah said, you will be with the one whom you love. Now the Sahaba heard this. It was a bit of a tizzy. It was a bit of a little spark that came up. Because people started wondering, is that for him? What about me? I love the Prophet ﷺ. Do I get to be with the Prophet ﷺ? Everybody started to get a little jealous. Finally, someone came and asked the Prophet ﷺ, Alahu khasun am lana am? He says, is this for that man specifically? Are you saying that we'll be with the one whom we love? Is that for him? Like he's going to be with the one whom he loves? Or is that for all of us? The Prophet ﷺ said, no, it's for everyone. And from there, the Sahaba actually rejoiced that this man came and asked a question, and now we all get to find out we can be with the Prophet ﷺ in Jannah. Right? But then another thing happens. They go to pray their salah, and during salah, somebody sneezes. Now, Dhul Khuwaysira hasn't learned all the etiquettes and the way salah has changed. He starts looking around. He's wondering, what the heck? Somebody just sneezed. Why has nobody said, Yarhamakallah? So during salah, he loudly says, Allahumma arhamni wa Muhammada wa la tarham ma'ana ahada. Oh Allah, have mercy on me and Muhammad and nobody else. Afterwards, the Prophet ﷺ turns around and he asks that, who said this? Man al-Qa'il? Who made this statement? And he says, me, right here. He's very proud. And the Prophet ﷺ explains to him, we don't say these things in salah. But the first thing the Prophet ﷺ says to him, لَقَدْ حَجَّرْتَ الْوَاسِعِ you have restricted something very vast. You're saying, may Allah's mercy be with me and you and nobody else. You have taken something that is far greater than you can imagine, and you have tried to restrict it to a very small area. And then he explains to him that, listen, this is not what we do in salah. Salah is a time where we do not speak, we do not say anything. We do a takbir tahrima, leave everything behind except our salah. So now you can imagine that the Prophet ﷺ has dealt with this man twice. The first time he comes, and then everybody starts coming to the Prophet ﷺ and asking this question. It's like somebody comes to me and says, Imam Sahib, can I get chai? And I say, yeah, you can get chai. And everyone starts to get jealous. And everybody then comes one by, can I get chai? What about me? Can I get chai? Can I get chai? I'm saying, yes, chai for everybody. Okay? Chai for everybody. So everybody comes. Same thing with the Prophet ﷺ. Everybody's coming. Me too, for everyone. So he starts this in the beginning. And then during salah, he speaks out loud. And he does something that you're not supposed to do. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam now explains to him, again, the procedure. And the man, he's appreciative, and he gets up, and as he goes to the corner of the masjid, he just starts to urinate. And the Sahaba look, they get up, sitting like all of you might be here. They're looking, and they just start to get up. And they start to go because they're going to stop this man. They're going to beat him, because why is he urinating in Masjid al-Nabawi, of all places? Rasulullah said, Da'uhu, leave him. Let him finish. Let him finish. And then once he was done, he told the younger Sahaba, go and clean that up. Take a large bucket, pour water over it, and clean it up. And then he called him over again. Now you can imagine at this point, it's like, man, this guy, right? This guy, once again. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam explains to him, this is the masjid, this is a place for salah. We don't do these types of things here. We go to other places to do this. And of course, at that point then, he departs, having taught some valuable lessons, not only to the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but to us. You see, there are 100 different things that the Prophet ﷺ could have done. There are 100 different ways he could have reacted. But Rasulullah ﷺ's patience in the face of someone who didn't know better is what we have to really take a second and reflect on. The Prophet ﷺ saw someone who was doing things differently, doing things in his own way. But rather than scolding him, rather than telling him this is wrong, don't do it this way, do it that way, you need to fix this, don't do that, the Prophet ﷺ just explained to him. Because, and this is a concept that may not always reach our minds, it may very well be that somebody just has not received the message in the right way before. That a young man comes to the masjid wearing shorts that maybe are a little higher than he should be. He doesn't know any better. And he just has never received the message that, no, during salah we have to cover this part. But he receives it with love. It'll be very different than if an uncle comes and says to him, what? How dare you do this, disrespecting the house of Allah? This is a masjid, you can't be here like this. It's a very different reaction. It's a very different way someone takes it. Speaking during salah, right? For someone to do such a thing, this is the most sacred time in a believer's life, is to stand with your hands having been put up and then crossed. This is the most sacred time in your entire day. And somebody is speaking and interrupting it. But what did he know? What was it that he was aware of? And then to go and do something that every common sense individual would look at and say, that doesn't make sense. But the Prophet ﷺ does not ascribe understanding to him. Rather, what he tells and shows through what he tells the Sahaba is that the ones who know better have a responsibility. Because the Prophet ﷺ didn't say to Dhul Khuwaysira, you go and clean up your mess. The Sahaba knew better. They knew that you don't do this. And he said to them, go and clean it up. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks us a question in the Quran. هل يستوي الذين يعلمون والذين لا يعلمون? Does the person who knows and the person who doesn't know, are they equal? Are they in the same level? Are they in the same place? And the answer is no. The one who has knowledge, who has understanding, who has been blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with understanding of something, they have a responsibility far greater than the one who does not know. You have a responsibility to live up to the knowledge that you have. And it's not always easy. But when was it that we were ever told we're going to get it easy? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not put us here for us to have things easy. But all of this then also goes to a larger point. We may see people do things that we do not fully comprehend, that we do not understand, that we may, through previous experiences, have seen to be incorrect. However, that does not justify and that does not give us the right to allow other people, as a result of what we think they do not know, to feel unwelcome here. No matter what someone does, for them to be standing in sufuf, to be standing in the house of Allah, in this place, there is no better place for them to be. And no matter if the person is a disbeliever, if they're a Muslim, if they're Qadiani, if they're Shia, if they're this or they're that, when their foot is next to yours, you do not move yourself from that place. You put yourself in the sufuf, in the lines, and you stay there as a jama'ah. You are not sinful for praying next to someone because of whatever they may do in their life or don't do. But in fact, were you to open yourself to them, to look at the example of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and see that, you know what, I have certain knowledge that I've been given, or I know something, or I follow this because this is what I've been taught, and then you were to give them the message, to at least convey it in a beautiful way, then you would earn the reward for all that comes after. But it is not acceptable and it is not appropriate to make anybody feel like the other in this place. Every single person who comes to the house of Allah is welcome to it. There is nobody who should ever be made to feel like they need to stand separate, because that's not what we do. We as an ummah follow our Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And through this narration, what's very clear is the Prophet ﷺ would have allowed people to do the things that if we were to see them, we would beat them today. He allowed them to do those things so that he could then teach. He could give the message. Because that's what the one who knows has a responsibility for. The one who knows has a responsibility towards that. And so, what I leave you all with today is, whenever you feel that you have seen an example from other people or have been told things that this is how I deal with it, or I might, first ask yourself, is this the sunnah of our Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or is this someone else's sunnah? The sunnah of our Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam is one of acceptance. It's one of kindness. It's one of understanding. And through this, the worst of people became part of his ummah. It wasn't because he was just destined to have that, but because he put in the effort. We as a community, brothers and sisters, need to do better. No matter who comes, no matter their skin color, no matter their background, they should never, ever, ever feel unwelcome here. And I ask all of you to make a commitment to yourself that I will never allow someone to do so. And if I have in the past, if in any way, shape, or form someone was upset, I go to them and I apologize. Because if they even come back, at the very least, I can apologize and try and right that wrong. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us tawfiq. to act on this and allow us to come together as a community of brothers and of sisters. Before I finish, inshallah, two things. Number one is Saturday, inshallah, we're going to have the Khatib workshop, as previously mentioned. It'll be after Dhuhr, 1:30. Second, we will have 2 Jumu'ahs starting from this Friday, inshallah, 12:15 to 12:35, and then we'll have the second one at the normal times, inshallah. So let people know. A lot of people may not have known about this. Share in your groups or whatever it might be. And inshallah, moving forward, we'll try to keep that, at least through the winter. We'll see how it goes in Ramadan, inshallah. But otherwise, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from us and allow us to be better. Wa sallallahu ala sayyidina wa Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi.